Breaking news, China. Nagulat sa biglaang pagtawag sa kanila ng Senado na palpak lahat ng trabaho ng China. Ayon sa Senado, manindigan tayo para sa lahat ng Pilipino. Hindi yung para nating niluluto sa sariling mantika ang mga inaapi nating sundalo. Kaya utos ng Senado, itigil ang multibilyong projects na ibinigay natin sa mga Chino. Itigil ang sobrang pagkabilib sa gawa ng mga Chino. Kung sila lang naman ang tatanungin, palpak lahat ng ginawa nilang trabaho. Kaya gagawa sila ng paraan para mailipat sa Koreano at Japan ang lahat ng proyekto. Gayong sila naman talaga ang totoong nagmamalasakit at totoo nating kaalyado.
The track record shows palpak ang projects ng China dito sa ating bansa. They were supposed to do the Clark. What happened to them? Gone with the wind. They were supposed to do the rail on the way to Bicol. Gone with the wind. They were supposed to do the Mindanao Rail. Ang ganda-ganda. Gone with the wind. It's now in the West Philippine Sea. Again, babalik ko yung statement na bakit natin gigisayin ang ating sarili sa ating sariling mantika. Masyado tayong bilib sa China. Sabi ko, it makes no sense for us to give billions of pesos to a Chinese contractor, state-owned, who will bring the profits back to China, and that profit, because it's state-owned, will go back to fund their different activities in the West Philippine Sea. Parang niluluto natin ang ating sarili sa sariling mantika.
Okay, in case decision is made to ban Chinese contractors from participating in pipeline projects of the national government.
Yeah, but Secretary, I mean, I think we all have to stand up for what's happening in the West Philippine Sea. You have to make a policy decision.
Especially, Your Honor, with
Secretary,
renewables, renewable energy and power projects.
Sec, allow me to finish as well. We have to also stand up for our troops in the West Philippine Sea. We should not be allowed. They should not be allowed to be bullied. I think we all agree to that. I mean, we can always get South Korean contractors. We can always get Japanese contractors. We can get Vietnamese contractors. They make fantastic infrastructure. We can get Indian also supplies from India. Kasi kung hindi nakataya palagi tayo, kung let's say nagkagulo na sa West Philippine Sea, Secretary. Because as the record show, palpak din naman yung kontrata nila. They never followed through with it. And I think that on the future projects, you want to do the bridges connecting Region 6, you want to do the Cavite-Bataan Bridge. Why don't we look at Japan? Why don't we look at South Korea on that aspect? They've been saying we'd like to have a portion of the businesses leaving China to go to the Philippines rather than all Vietnam, because they're now having a strategic partnership, economic partnership with Vietnam. So I believe, and they had a long war with Vietnam, decimated half their population, including half the natural resources of that country. But now they're making amends, and I believe the United States also will be coming over to coming with very soon with a trade mission to hopefully also ask the Philippines to look at the U.S. with renewed vigor rather, and we'll push for that free trade agreements. But even sourcing materials. Why don't we focus on local? Tama po sinabi ni Senator Binay, katabi ko, why don't we focus local? Like, why are we buying fruits and vegetables from China when we can actually grow these fruits and vegetables here in the Philippines? Indonesia did that policy shift. Indonesia banned all the rare earth metals from export. That's why tumaas ang presyo ng nickel, tumaas ang presyo ng rare earth minerals. Because their focus of Widodo, and this was Widodo's policy, the focus of President Widodo was gawin dito sa Indonesia yung processing at yung hindi lamang po siyang byproduct or hindi lang po siya raw materials, pero high value products ang i-develop. So I spoke to investors because I'm trying to get as many investors as we can. As you know, we've been doing the rounds in the US and other countries to bring investments here, and they were saying in Indonesia they're giving a plethora of financial incentives for these companies to actually build battery plants, rare earth metals processing facilities, all in Indonesia. So I'm hoping that we can follow suit, Secretary, because I think that's a policy that we should take. If you want an independent foreign policy, we have to have also an independent and strategic and strengthened economic policy, so that we're not hostage by any other country. So. And I'm sure the Secretary will agree with me on that. Secretary,
Yes,
do we have the same mindset, Secretary?
we are thinking of the same thing, but I think before we ban, for example, the export of ore, we have to make sure that there are facilities available in the Philippines for developing for value added.
Well, just for the information of the body, I spoke to an investor that is they're actually in Korea now signing an MOU with Poksu which is one of the biggest battery developers in Korea. And alam mo sinabi nila? Ang sabi ng mga American businessmen, we would like to buy batteries directly from your company, but would you assemble them in the Philippines? I was completely taken by surprise there, pleasantly surprised, that was the mention, na they no longer put high-level processing plants in the Philippines, Secretary. Just for your information. I just found out about 2 nights ago because they were leaving and they had no gifts to give. So I had to buy, I gave them yung giveaways namin dito para sa mga embassies para madala-dala nila yung regalo dun after the signing of the MOU. So just to let you know, pero binayaran ko ulit. On the Chinese contractors, Your Honors, I know they go through NEDA approval, Secretary RC. It makes no sense, no? And I came out with this publicly the other day, both in the show of Karen Davila and then kay Noli De Castro in his radio program. Sabi ko, it makes no sense for us to give billions of pesos to a Chinese contractor, state-owned, who will bring the profits back to China, and that profit, because it's state-owned, will go back to fund their different activities in the West Philippine Sea. Parang niluluto natin ang ating sarili sa sariling mantika. Ika nga. Do we still have several Chinese contractors, state-owned contractors doing contracts for us here being paid by Filipino taxpayers' money, including those of the Coast Guard and Navy na kinakaltasan ng kanilang sweldo ng buwis na binabayaran nila taon-taon. So, may we have an answer on that?
In case decisions made to ban Chinese contractors from participating in pipeline projects of the national government, it may have the following potential effects, right? For example, implementation of official development assistance projects from bilateral and multilateral ODA partners alike, particularly for projects considering multiple country participation, including China, as a member of the Asian Development Bank, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and the World Bank. So that it might affect the implementation of those projects. Procurement, let me finish, Your Honor. Procurement of locally funded projects and even PPP implementation if the main contractors, suppliers, or subcontractors will be Chinese firms or Chinese nationals. Potential impact on the economy for possible delays in the projects that will be affected. And of course, we have to shift to the financing for those projects that have been requested from China. Let me give you the situation. Because of the huge list or the long list of infrastructure projects that we want to do, we're running out of workers in the Philippines, Your Honor. I think you will agree with me. We're running out of work, plus also the private sector workers. And we need foreign workers, maybe Indian workers, Chinese workers.
Yeah, but Secretary, I mean, I think we all have to stand up for what's happening in the West Philippine Sea.
Yeah.
You have to make a policy decision.
Especially, Your Honor, with
Secretary,
renewables, renewable energy, and power projects.
Sec, allow me to finish as well. Okay, yeah. We have to also stand up for our troops in the West Philippine Sea. We should not be allowed. They should not be allowed to be bullied. I think we all agree to that.
Agree, eh?
Yes. So, again, babalik ko yung statement na bakit natin gigisayin ang ating sarili sa ating sariling mantika. Masyado tayo bilib sa China. I mean, we can always get South Korean contractors. We can always get Japanese contractors. We can get Vietnamese contractors. They make fantastic infrastructure. We can get Indian also supplies from India. Secretary, kausap ko si Secretary Bautista. Ang sabi niya sa akin, ang palpak lahat ng Chinese contracts. Hindi natuloy. South Rail. They abandoned it. All these contracts that were made in the previous administration are abandoned. Correct? You're nodding your head, yes. So it's
Mr. Chair, SP, if I may just interject to support the line of argument of
With the
SP.
permission of the Senate President.
Thank you, SP. And thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at an Asia Times article citing NEDA statistics na as a percentage of total ODA received by the Philippines as of June 2018, China accounted for a mere 0.8% of the estimated $13 billion received. NEDA statistics po ito, Mr. Chair, SP. While, for example, Japan, on the other hand, accounted for 40.3% of the total. And in that list po, China also trailed Australia, South Korea, the European Union, and France in total ODA given. 6 lang po siya NEDA statistics.
Yeah,
SP, Mr. Chair.
thank you very much, my distinguished sponsor, distinguished colleague. And that's my point, Mr. Secretary. Masyado tayong believe sa China, kung yung talagang dumarating dito galing China ay napakaliit.
Your Honor, the statistics are correct. There are only a few Chinese projects. Okay, most of the projects done during the Duterte administration are financed by ADB or JICA. However, as I mentioned, when it's ADB project, any member country can actually compete in the bid out, okay, in the bidding of the project. And if it requires a Chinese contractor, if the Chinese contractor wins, we cannot do anything about that.
Usually the style is, di ba, pag kumuha tayo ng COICA to do the feasibility study.
Yeah.
Diba?
Kung ano po, yung
COICA, Korean government yun.
Yes,
correct.
yes.
JICA, I hope that the bridge that you will develop to Cavite and Bataan will be from a reputable country such as Japan or South
Could
Korea.
be a Japanese firm, but the workers do not have to be Japanese kasi wala na akong workers from Japan eh. Wala na rin mga South Korean na...
I absolutely agree.
So, kaya hindi ho natin kontrolado yung who's going to do the project.
I don't disagree with you on the workers, and that's my next issue. Actually, that's my last policy statement on the workers. I have no problem on your point, but we have other options. We're not saying we don't have to make it. It can be a policy shift when it comes to that, because the track record shows palpak ang mga projects ng China dito sa ating bansa. They were supposed to do the Clark. What happened to them? Gone with the wind. They were supposed to do the rail on the way to Bicol. Gone with the wind. They were supposed to do the Mindanao rail. Ang ganda-ganda. Gone with the wind. It's now in the West Philippine Sea. So, my point is, let us deal with, I think, reputable and reliable, friendly partners with like-minded ideals. And I think that would be a better option for our country. Kasi kung hindi nakataya palagi tayo, kung let's say nagkagulo na sa West Philippine Sea, Secretary. You know, we have several Chinese nationals in this country, to be honest with you. When I go jogging at night, I see several young men from mainland China with short hair jogging around my village. You know, I'm worried that we might, wala si Senator Bato dito, pero I'm worried baka pinasukan na tayo dito sa Pilipinas. And ngayon sa Rose Boulevard, nandyan na sila. They're what you call at your doorstep. There was a movie, Lions at the Gate. So, ang pundo ko dyan, what is the policy of ours for protecting our sovereignty in this country? Maybe we need to make a nationalist stand on how we can look at other options for our country. Because as the record show, palpak din naman yung kontrata nila. They never followed through with it. And I think that on the future projects, you want to do the bridges connecting Region 6, you want to do the Cavite-Bataan Bridge. Why don't we look at Japan? Why don't we look at South Korea on that aspect?
Few months.
Yeah, but I'm asking the policy questions. Are we trying to tap other markets? I mean,
Yes, we want an FTA with EU community, for example, and even the US.
yes, because for example, when I came out with my position on a ban on contracts, government contracts on Chinese government state-owned corporations, I used the context of what Vietnam had done. And people misconstrue that as saying I'm asking for a boycott on Chinese products. Obviously, if we boycott Chinese products, maybe half the equipment that we have here, together with half the things that we have on this table, will probably not be around. My point lang is, we have to have other markets to tap. India could be one. Japan and South Korea definitely could be one. And I'd like to ask a policy question to the NEDA. Are we actually looking for alternative markets for imports? Remember that there is a trade imbalance with China. We're only, I think it's 70-30. 70% they import. Here, we only, I think by the hundreds of billions of dollars, and we only export 30 plus.
Ngayon, ikaw, bilang Pilipino, ano ang masasabi mo at reaksyon sa balitang ito? Mag-iwan ka ng komento sa ibaba at atin pong babasahin isa-isa.